Hello everyone. After a long, unintended, and extended hiatus, we are back again to bring you some of our favorite books. Let me start out with A Girl Returned. This is a novel written by an Italian author, Donatella di Pietrantonio. It is the story of a 13-year-old girl who is never named in the book. She is dropped off very abruptly one day at the home of a family that she has never met. She has grown up the adopted only child of a fairly well-to-do set of parents. One day, very unexpectedly, her adopted father takes her to this unknown family who turn out to be her biological family. They live in poverty. They have very little in the way of any kind of means. She sleeps in her room with a sister and several brothers, and she does not have any idea why she has been taken to this family. This book is beautifully written. It's been translated by Anne Goldstein, who has done all of the Elena Ferrante novels. If you have read Elena Ferrante, don't miss this. If you haven't read her, start with this. This story is one of a resilient person, a little girl who just won't give in and who struggles for a year trying to solve the mystery of why she has been left behind. Make sure you try it.
My first choice is Sea Wife by Amity Gaige. It's a new title. It's a very interesting story about a young, upwardly mobile couple who decide to get out of the suburban rat race. The husband, Michael, buys a boat and they decide to sail to Panama. And they have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and off they go. And at first, it's a dream. It's wonderful to be out of the rat race and all is well. But soon, their lack of preparation begins to show. The engine starts to break, and then the fractures in their marriage begin to become more evident. It's a very interesting story of what happens when we go pell-mell through life without a real plan.
That sounds good. Writers and Lovers is Lily King's newest entry into the world of fiction. You may all remember her from Euphoria, her last novel. This one is very, very different. This is a very introspective novel, much of which seems quite autobiographical. It is a story of Casey Kasem, a 31-year-old young woman who is very much in debt, is experiencing a very unstable love life, has recently lost her mother, and all of those wounds are laid open and very bare. And to top it all off, she has been struggling for the past 6 years to write a novel, one that she feels compelled to continue with. The story has its very sad elements, as you might well expect, but it also is very funny and very uplifting. My book group read it recently. We couldn't say enough about it. There wasn't a person in the room that didn't feel very good about it. So I hope that maybe your group will take a look at it soon.
We must be on a roll with mothers and daughters, because my next selection is Actress by Anne Enright. And for those of you who enjoy the work of Edna O'Brien, this will be right up your alley. It's a story of Nora, who has grown up the only daughter of Catherine O'Dell, an internationally famous Irish actress who was a great dramedian. Her life was passionate. She had great heights of stardom, and Nora had to go along for the ride. Nora is a middle-aged woman and interviewed about her mother who has died, and it occurs to her she should be the one to write the biography of her mother, but she doesn't really know her. And it's her story looking back at who Catherine O'Dell really is.
Sounds good. Julia Alvarez is back after almost 15 years since her last novel. You remember her from How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accent or In the Time of the Butterflies. This is the story of Antonia Vega. She has recently retired from her teaching position at a small New England college, looking very much forward to having a lovely life of retirement with her husband Sam. He dies very unexpectedly within the first few weeks of her retirement. Struggling to recover from that, she is brought back into the circle of her sisters once again. And they all have some level of shenanigans going on, but it's the older sister who is really struggling with a very serious problem. Antonia's always been accused of being the more distant sister, so being pulled back into this circle carries some serious consequences for her. As if that weren't enough, she finally gets back home, only to find a young, undocumented, pregnant woman on her doorstep. This is the story of issues having to do with what do we owe each other, what do we owe ourselves, and how far can we go to be there for someone else. It's wonderful.
And since we're on sisters, here's one absolutely not to be missed. The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. You may remember her. She also wrote Mothers. It starts in the 1940s, and it's the story of two African-American twin sisters, Desiree and Stella Vignette. And they live in a small podunk town in northern Louisiana, which is known only because of the multiplicity of light-skinned African Americans, of which they are two. They run away at the age of 16 to New Orleans. Desiree ends up marrying the darkest man she can find, and Stella ends up passing as white. And this is a story as it goes through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, into the 80s, of the unintended consequences of those decisions we make that are life-changing. It's a wonderful story and characters you won't forget.
Speaking of twins, Kevin Wilson is out with his own new book. You may remember him from The Family Fang. Kevin is well known for his ability to take a real-life situation and make something somewhat absurd about it. And yet, in the end, he has a very definite message to tell here. In this story, the twins are a brother and sister, Bessie and Roland, who have been dropped off at the home of their father and stepmother. The twins have a very unique characteristic. They burst into flame at any hint of anxiety, fear, rage. So the goal here is to keep the children from experiencing those emotions. The stepfather really has no time for the children. He is hopefully going to move from the Senate to become Secretary of State. His stepmother is very dedicated to her husband's career and really doesn't have time either to shepherd these children through periods of calm. So they invite an old friend of the stepmother to come and look after the children. She herself, the new woman Lillian, really doesn't have much going on in her life either, so she's very happy to join this motley crew. It is a wonderful story of parenting, of what we owe our children, how our children cope, sometimes with the most serious of life situations, all wrapped up in a very funny, humorous, and quirky book.
That sounds great, Marianne.
I think it'll be good.
And for a little nonfiction entry, this is The Splendid and the Vile, Erik Larson's newest offering. It is the first 12 months of the prime ministership of Winston Churchill. And on the day that he became prime minister, Adolf Hitler invaded Holland and Belgium and began a 12-month bombing campaign that ended up taking the 45,000 lives of British citizens. And this is really the story of Churchill keeping the Britons together, pulled together, and really teaching them how to live fearlessly, using original diaries and archival information. Larson has recreated conversations with people that certainly existed. His wife Clementine, his daughter Mary, his son Randolph, forever miserable, and his unhappy 19-year-old wife Pamela. But it's the day-to-day of what these 12 months were like, and how he also really brought the brinksmanship that went into pulling Britain through the war. It's a fascinating story.
The Mountains Sing is perhaps the most highly anticipated book of the year so far. Reviewers and writers alike have been anxious for this book to come out. It is written by Nguyễn Phan Quế Mai, who is a well-known Vietnamese poet, actually. I think this may be her first work of prose. It is a story of a family living in North Vietnam and told through 50-plus years of their struggles during war-torn periods. It's told through the eyes of the grandmother and granddaughter, who the grandmother relays all of the stories of her childhood, and then of course the granddaughter lives through some of them. What is remarkable about this book is the almost fantasy-like tale told by this author. She makes it digestible without erasing any of the horror that the family has experienced. It really is a wonderful book, one that will stay with you for a very long time, and with so much to talk about in your book group meeting.
And this is my last selection, which I have not yet read, but I'm picking it up to do so. This is Isabel Allende's newest offering, A Long Petal of the Sea. And it takes place in the 1930s, right during the Spanish Civil War, a most intriguing time. There are two refugees, Rosa, a young widowed woman who was pregnant with her first child, and Victor, her brother-in-law. In order to get out of Spain and into France and ultimately to Chile for their security, they marry. And it is the story of their trip to Chile, but also about their partnership, which is forged for their survival and to maintain the legacy of the man they both loved. I can't wait to read it.
Sounds great. They're all available for you to read whenever you're interested. Just let us know, request a book on our book group webpage, or email us at bookgroups@darienlibrary.org. Bye now.